Let's just jump into it.
How's Kony doing these days?
It seems likely that if he's not captured in the next few years, he'll be dead anyway. It was reported a few years ago that he has type 2 diabetes, and that's a fairly progressive disease. It's hard to get dialysis or large stocks of insulin in the jungle. But for now, he's roaming around in the jungle with about 100 troops, and hopefully he's dead sooner than later.
Those tattoos, were they real?
As far as I can tell, they're all real. I only put a few of them in the video. There were a couple others that were a bit more dubious, so I left them out. For example, this one, which is like the upside-down triangle, which represents the Fourth Estate. So it was like the next campaign that represented equality or something.
Is Kony actually as bad as they say?
I feel like everything's so hyperbolized in the media these days, so it's kind of hard to find words that describe quite how evil this guy is. But unequivocally, yes. Kills kids, mutilates kids, amputates their arms and legs, kills them for sport, kills them to send messages, makes them kill one another. If I was living there by any means necessary, I'd be getting the fuck out.
Why did Jason have the breakdown?
These things I think are always multi-factor. So the first is he had an underlying mental illness. The second is that he was very run down, so operating on very little sleep, very high pressure situations, going from interview to interview, flying across the country. Apparently he was also very dehydrated, so sort of not taking care of himself, simple maintenances. The third is that he had a very bright spotlight on him. All of a sudden, he was the face of the most viral video to date, and he was recognized in places. He was criticized as well as praised wherever he went, and he just wasn't prepared for it. The fifth is that I think he felt a very strong responsibility. I think he's a sincere guy. I think he really did want to help people in Africa. That's it. That seems, as far as I can tell, that really is his main goal. And so I think he felt an enormous pressure when suddenly everyone went, oh, he's the guy who's going to fix Africa? Okay, well, here's all the resources you need, and we're going to fulfill all the criteria that you've set out. You just have to deliver a safe Africa now. And it's like, oh, hey, man. There's kids having their pieces of their face cut off and stuff, and he's the one who's going to have to fix it. And I can see how that would be a very heavy weight to have on your shoulders. People said that he was on drugs. That's not true. At least I don't think that's true. They'll test you for that sort of stuff when you get checked into a mental hospital. Here's an interview he did with Oprah where he says that no drugs.
Were you on drugs at all at the time?
0 drugs. If I saw that video, though, and it wasn't me, I'd be like, that person's on drugs.
Absolutely.
I would be like, I don't care what they say. Yeah.
He tends to be fairly matter-of-fact about these things. He also wasn't jacking it. I felt like I had to address that in the video. Casey Neistat said he was. South Park featured it as a large part in one of their episodes. It seems like thousands and thousands of people were saying that he was jacking it into the streets, but there is absolutely no corroboration from it. There were no witnesses who said that he was jacking it. There were no police who said that he was jacking it. The footage doesn't show him jacking it, and so it just seems to have been plucked from thin air, and it's become part of the story now, and it's almost impossible to refute. It is what it is. I read this very long interview. I can't remember where it was published. And it talks about the scope of the delusions. And I cut this bit out for the sake of brevity. But he says at one point, he called his mate up and he says, you got to come to the house. And he comes over and he says, hey man, we have to rearrange all the books on my bookshelf in chronological order so that we can determine what humanity should do next. Like crazy delusions of grandeur. So this is like a full-on mental break. And he spent a month in a mental hospital. And I don't know. It seems to me like if you're going to feel pity for anyone, it's someone who has a mental breakdown and spends a month in a mental hospital. And anyway. The last thing to mention is also that pretty soon after I had made that video, Jason Russell actually appeared in an interview with the BBC, and he talked about his mental breakdown. And it's a really good interview. It goes for about 30 minutes. I'll provide a link. And it basically confirms a lot of the things in the video. They don't touch on the same exact points. But it's a very good synopsis of what happened. And Jason, goes through it in his own words. And it's worth a listen.
What the fuck is up with that musical? I want to scratch my eyes.
Okay, so that music video was part of a campaign called the Global Night Commute. This is back in 2006. And the idea behind the Global Night Commute is that we're going to sleep out on the streets for a night to understand and have empathy for these kids that are having to do the same in rural Uganda. Accompanying it was this video. Why was it like this? Well, I think, 2006, High School Musical was popular. I think they wanted to put something on their show reel. I think they enjoyed musicals, and they saw this as the best way of relating to the kids. So I want to show the thing in full. It's under Creative Commons license, so you can do whatever you want with it. The footage I showed on the main channel video was about 30 seconds of a 7-minute video, so I'll understand if you want to opt out. Here's a timestamp so that you can just skip it if you just cannot take it anymore. So they're pretending like they've just screened a video to a high school audience, right?
Pretty powerful. Now would you help me give a warm Eagles welcome to the 3 filmmakers of Invisible Children. We're going to have question and answers, so if you have a question, just raise your hand and one of the 3 guys will answer it. Yes, right here.
The movie was really good and sad and all, but what are we supposed to do about it?
That's a really good question. On April 29th, we're having this thing called the Global Night Commute. We're asking you and all you guys who just saw the movie to commute to your local downtown and sleep in the streets like the kids do in the movie.
Yep, right here.
No offense, but what do you know about ending war?
I know.
So,
I know.
Oh, shit, hold on.
It sounds crazy.
so they're acting as their own sort of devil's advocate.
Crazy, we know, and we don't know much.
Anyway, this is why I said he's a typical Californian dude. Because, listen to this guy's accent.
I know, it sounds
hard,
crazy, we know, and we don't know much. We've never done this before, but we know that what America does gets noticed, and what the people in America do can't be ignored.
Come on, guys, get real. Hundreds before you have tried to end wars. What makes you so different?
It's not that we're...
Damage in the world?
Why doesn't the Ugandan government just shoot that Joseph Kony guy?
If we sleep outside, will there be a bathroom there?
I don't know, I kind of want to just leave.
That is a legitimate question. If you can hear in the background, I hope this is loud enough. He goes, someone in the background yells, if we're sleeping out in the streets, is there going to be a bathroom?
They're ADD high school kids.
We gotta do something, you guys. What can we do to bring them back? They respond to like spectacle, something huge, big, flashy. That's what we need to do. Let's bring it. Okay, then let's give them what they want. Let's do what we always do. Dance.
Fuck yeah. So I skipped a lot of this because it has a real long build up, but it's that typical, they're all skeptical, but then by the end, he's even got the principal dancing kind of thing. Oh, look, they're giant now. I've had this song in my fucking head for the last 2 months.
On a mission, put Uganda deep inside your mind. It needs attention and intent to make it sparkle and shine.
Oh, wait a minute, I'm changing my mind. I tried so hard to get this shirt printed in time for this video release. I swear to God, I talked to like 4 t-shirt printers, but I couldn't find anyone who could do like this full pink shirt, and tracking down this particular photograph in high res was really quite difficult, and by the end I just sort of gave up. I'll see if I can provide like a high quality PNG for you after this, and if you want to go get your own t-shirt made.
Gotta shake it up and break it up and let the war without a gun. We're not qualified. We need to congregate and demonstrate so one day we can celebrate. We are here to change the world. Gonna change the world. We are here to change the world. Gonna change the world. Whoa.
So that's the end of Act 1. Yeah, cafeteria food.
So don't forget it, cause it happens on a Saturday.
I don't know who that guy is.
The 29th of April. We are here to change the world. Gonna change the world. Change the world. Gonna change the world. Whoa.
Don't forget to sign up online.
5, 6, 7, 8, let's go.
You got to admire some of the coordination though.
Alright, you guys, are you here to feel better? Let's go. This is jazzercise. Let's move it.
Whoa, remix. Break it down.
Okay, now, this is the big day. Did you brush your teeth?
Yeah.
I've got no idea who this kid is.
Yes, Mom.
Did you bring your camera?
Yes, Mom.
Did you eat your broccoli?
Mom, I'm trying to end a war.
Well then, let's
That's Jason Russell's mum.
do this.
Hold on.
Gonna change the world. We are here to change the world. Gonna change the world. Whoa. We are here to change the world. Gonna change the world.
I don't know if you can get this on Spotify, but it's on a Creative Commons license, so.
Whoa. We are here to end the world. Moving up a missing star, yeah. We are here to end the world. We can end the freaking world, baby. Woo.
See you there.
Right. Now, I found something interesting about this video. So, you know, cringy as it is, they made it in 3 weeks, which is fairly impressive with all this sort of stuff, right? Guess who edited and directed it? I'm not sure if you've heard a movie called Crazy Rich Asians before, but it's still in cinemas at the moment. There's a guy who directed, you know the Now You See Me movies? Those ones with the magicians, with like Jesse Eisenberg and all those actors. Oh, hold on. Yeah, here he is. So this guy, Jon M. He directed Crazy Rich Asians, Now You See Me Too, G.I. Joe Retaliation, like a lot of like big movies, Step Up 3D. He made this movie. It's actually in the description of the video itself. Jon M. helped direct and edit. I thought that was funny. But there was this weird other thing which I wanted to put in the video and I just couldn't find a place for it. So, before Jason Russell went and made Visible Children, he was friends with Jon M. He still is. And he and his wife and Jon M. wrote a musical called Moxie. And he sold the rights to it to Steven Spielberg. Nothing ever came of it. They never made it into a movie. But anyway, I just think it's like this weird thing that should be mentioned somewhere. So Jason Russell sold a movie script with the help of Jon M. to Steven Spielberg at some point.
Talk a bit about that car shooting.
I wanted to bring this a little bit up because in the video there's a scene where it says, "The car in front of us was shot by the LRA." While driving through a rural village,
A car was shot in front of us by a rebel army who was led by a guy named Joseph Kony.
and I think this is an example of Jason stretching the truth a little bit, where he didn't need to. So they're on tour in Uganda, they're being driven around by this local woman. The local woman pulls over to the side of the road and starts talking to the locals. They say, "You better get out of here because there's just been a car shot up at the side of the road. 2 people were killed in it." They quickly floor it and get to the next town, which is Gulu. And there they speak to some of the Ugandan army.
Thankfully, we made it into the city and started asking questions.
What has happened back there?
Okay, those were the rebel who shot that vehicle.
The LRA? What do you mean shot?
They used their gun to shoot them.
Because of the shooting, we were forced to stay in the town of Gulu overnight.
The Ugandan army then describes to them what happened and that there was a shooting, confirming what the villagers said. But the way that Jason tells it, and the way that it's written about, is as though they were there to witness it, but they weren't. Everything is a second-hand account. I thought that was just a sort of unnecessary stretching of the truth. I realize that people do this sort of stuff to make a story more sexy, but it just didn't need to be.
How did Invisible Children start?
When Kony 2012 came out, people assumed that this was the charity's very first campaign, and it wasn't. They've been doing these things since 2005. They've actually got a number of very good programs that they continue with to today. It includes things like setting up schools, scholarships, even scholarships for some of the child soldiers that have come out of the jungle to try and reform them and reintegrate them back into the cities and villages. And they're campaigns that have actually been pretty effective. I don't think they got proper credit for a lot of that work. A few other things included a series of radio towers, an app that supposedly tracked the LRA, so essentially a warning system, get the hell out of there, they're coming your way, as well as basic infrastructure kind of stuff.
What was the Ugandan government's response to the Kony 2012 video?
The Ugandan Board of Tourism was not particularly happy when this video came out, and they think it actually hurt them. For a couple of years afterwards, people thought it was a war-torn hellhole. And in fact, the Prime Minister of Uganda, after all these celebrities tweeted out, hashtag Kony 2012 and jumped on that bandwagon, he tweeted at them, so at Justin Bieber, at Kim Kardashian, hey, why not come to Uganda? It's not as bad as everyone's saying. Yeah, so damage control, I think you'd call it.
What's up with that Moreno Ocampo guy?
Okay, I feel like I have to have a disclaimer for this one. Moreno Ocampo, former chief prosecutor for the International Criminal Court. If it comes out in the news that I committed suicide, please investigate it as a murder. Also a historian, you can't have any of my stuff. I want it all to go to Frederick Knudsen so that he can make an investigative video. Because this guy seems pretty powerful, and he's into all sorts of shady dealings. So, Moreno Ocampo. First of all, what was up with that plot? Well, I think he's a bit of a social climber. I think he wanted to get close to some celebrities because he has a fascination with celebrity. and he likes to be in the spotlight himself. Did he really think that that plot was going to work? Probably not. I think it was a sort of, let's just see how far down the road we can get with this and see what happens kind of deal. But the point was to spend time with Angelina Jolie, preferably also with Brad Pitt, and to be seen doing it. I think that's why he invited her to all sorts of other events as well. They've met up before several times. I don't think Angelina Jolie and Brad took it too seriously, to be honest. From what I read of the emails, they're just excerpts. I wasn't able to get a hold of the whole, batch of emails that were leaked. But I'm sure they get invitations to things all the time, and the polite thing to do is oh yeah, no, we'll chat it over, and it sounds like a great opportunity, and then let nothing happen is usually the best course of action. So that's what I think they were thinking from their side. As I understand it, I don't have the emails. I don't actually know who has the emails anymore. I think it was just a small selection that were leaked as part of a blackmailing campaign, actually, against him, to try and hurt his character. He said, "I miss you," in an email to Angelina Jolie. That was like the last of their correspondence, as is my understanding. And he got a response from Angelina's personal assistant, who said, she had a different email address now. So maybe it all ended a bit awkwardly. I haven't seen them together recently. But I think it's worth touching on that this guy is pretty shady. I'm sure at that level of government, especially in a corrupt institution like the UN, that it's pretty difficult to not be into some pretty shady things. But as soon as he was finished with his tenure, which is about 8 years, I think, he went to a business associate of Gaddafi's. He was an oil magnate, and said to him, "Hey, why don't you give me a $2 million retainer? Because I know you may be being investigated, and I'll do nothing. And you can just pay me $2 million a year." The implication being that he would feed him information through his network of contacts. And then this money was supposed to be routed through a shell company, which Moreno owned, which sold like luxury briefcases and luggage. And there's just all these weird things going on with this guy.
Why didn't they ever just bomb the shit out of the LRA?
Okay, well, there are 5 main reasons that I see. So the first of all is it's the wrong jurisdiction. So if the Ugandan Air Force were to bomb Kony, well, they're going to have a hard time if he's in the Central African Republic or in Sudan, right? The second is tied to that. They don't know where he is. So they're an opportunistic group. They roam around. They stay in the places of least resistance. And they're also in the jungle. So it's pretty hard to pin them down and bomb them. 3, they're spread out. So you're going to have to flatten huge swathes of the forest in order to get a few guys. 4th is that they're a diminishing threat. Whereas the LRA at its peak had over 10,000 troops, they now have between 1 and 200. The long-term campaigns to have these people reintegrated back into the cities and villages is working for the most part. Most people have defected. And the most important factor of all, most of the people who are with Joseph Kony, you probably wouldn't actually want to bomb. So he's got kids with him, he's got young girls, essentially slaves, people that you want to help and save rather than kill. So here's a clip of Jason and Ben talking about that.
A lot of her comments were related to the fact that Joseph Kony is not by himself. There's a lot of innocent women and children and abducted fighters that are near him. And so any approach to stop the LRA needs to be sensitive.
I think that that's actually part of the deliberate strategy by Kony. It's, it's a permanent hostage situation in some ways.
Where'd all those fat stacks go? Swiggity swidgety, /flex.
Where did all the money go? Well, that's a difficult question to answer, because it's very hard to know without being within the organization. But my understanding is this. After Kony 2012 came out, they thought, wow, what an enormous success. despite, some of the despite, the mental breakdown and all that sort of stuff. We've raised $23 million this year. Fantastic. There's so much we can do with that. They have a model which is like 70% goes into production, advertising, getting the message out, communications, all this sort of stuff, and 30% goes to the cause. That's not a good ratio. It's a bad ratio. But they're open and honest about it. Anyway, they raised $23 million. 3/10 of it goes to the cause. So they said, okay, we've found a model that gives us enormous success. Let's replicate that. Here's the new campaign. We're going to call it the Fourth Estate. It is even broader. And the idea of the Fourth Estate is essentially an absolute upending of the power structure of, I don't even think they entirely knew what it was.
Or 3 estates. A citizenship founded on the belief that all men and women in the world are created equal, and that justice for all is not a fantasy.
It just ended up being so vague, like end poverty, one of those kind of campaigns. Anyway, after the whole controversy, after Kony 2012 died out and they hadn't been able to communicate or deliver any really concrete results, like, Kony wasn't dead, Kony wasn't captured. People didn't really look at the Fourth Estate. You can look at the difference in views. It's like one's 103 million and the other's like 70,000. Incredible drop off. So they had spent a whole bunch of money producing the Fourth Estate. And then in the year 2013, they raised far less money. It was like 11 million, 12 million, something like that. Less than half, right? But in that time, they had started expanding their operations. So they went, okay, this model doesn't work, right? We're gonna have to take a new approach. And so since then, I believe what they have done is take what remains of that 23 million and put it towards long-term, small-scale, localized projects that actually are effective in the region. Flyer campaigns, building schools, infrastructure, education programs, radio tower networks, then outreach programs with other organizations. So in 2017, technically, they closed their doors. But on the UN jobs page, they're still hiring. So they primarily, as I understand it, work with other organizations. That's what's been done with the money. It's mostly focused on those small-scale, long-term, localized projects. So it's my understanding that a good portion of that money has gone to the right place.
OMG. Have you seen that video of one of the founders of Invisible Children drinking and saying he's going to steal some of the money ?
I wanted to address this one quickly, just in case someone else brought it up and used it as a way to criticize Invisible Children. So I'll play the video.
About me. There's here 100,000 for Haiti and 900,000 extra for me.
For me.
Get on the bandwagon. Hey, Africa is gonna come up in the world, you guys.
So that was one of the founders of Invisible Children. The way this video presents is that he's drunk and saying that he's going to keep $900,000 for himself and his organization, and 1/10 is going to go to Haiti. But the key thing to keep in mind here is that it's a joke. It's like absolutely a joke. This was published by TMZ shortly after the Kony 2012 video, and when Jason was caught naked on the street, as a way to further discredit the charity. And first of all, that Smirnoff bottle is filled with water. He's not drinking vodka. And second, the whole purpose of the video is to congratulate his co-workers. So they're in a different office across the country, and he's basically saying, congratulations, you secured a grant of $1 million for this cause, Haiti, I don't know all the precise details of it. And he's just trying to have a fucking laugh, right? They've been working towards something for a long time, and they finally succeeded in getting it. And then, he's making a joke. And this was presented as them stealing money from Haiti, and I thought that's a pretty nasty and unfair thing to do.
What was Kony's response to the whole thing?
So the LRA put out an official statement when the Kony 2012 video was released. They said, "Indeed, this is not the first time the Invisible Children has been used to play such a dirty role. In Uganda, the Invisible Children have been used to cover up on many occasions for the vile acts of the US-supported military regime of Uganda in its dirty war activities that its army has carried out against the civilian population in northern, northeastern, and midwest Uganda." Just to elaborate a little, that's essentially the LRA's purpose. They see the Uganda government as illegitimate. Their purpose was to overthrow the government, so that maybe gives a little more context to what they're saying. And that's about it. They've had their run-ins with Invisible Children before, and they're not fans.
Were there any arrests over the vandalism?
I don't think so, especially not for putting posters up everywhere, which is really just annoying. It's just littering. Whatever. But some people did go around just spray painting Kony 2012 on things, including people's garage doors. That was investigated, although I don't believe anyone was ever arrested over it.
Why the HE double hockey sticks does George Clooney have a spy satellite?
Alright, so first thing to clarify is he doesn't own it. He's essentially renting it. It costs like $10 million just to launch the satellite at starting price, and the upkeep is astronomical. So he's partnered with Google and a whole bunch of other companies to do this. Supposedly, they've managed to achieve some things like detecting bombs, destroyed villages, and some other evidence of destruction by the Sudanese army. The logic behind it, as George Clooney says, is that, well, if he is constantly being hounded by the paparazzi, surely a dictator in Africa should be subject to the same level of scrutiny. I don't quite follow that logic.
I'd like indicted war criminals to enjoy the same level of celebrity as me. That seems fair. That's our objective, is to just shine a light on it.
But maybe it's doing some good. It's hard to say.
Where does Kony be at these days?
I don't want to pretend like I know more than I do, so I'll have to be very surface level on the politics. But this is what I understand. The LRA operates very opportunistically. They bumble around all these different areas on the borders of the Central African Republic, the Congo, Uganda, sometimes Sudan, South Sudan. So he could be anywhere, really. It's most likely that he's somewhere in the Central African Republic. But it could also be that he's taking refuge in Sudan. Now, the reason for that, as I understand it, you have essentially a civil conflict between the LRA and the government of Uganda. Now, in Sudan, in South Sudan, there was a conflict as well. Uganda supported the split and supported South Sudan. Sudan, the northern version of Sudan, the bad one, which is run by al-Bashir, he was not particularly happy about that. So he funded the LRA as well as a bunch of more extremist Islamic groups to cause havoc in South Sudan and continue some of their operations in Uganda as well, which is interesting because the LRA stands for the Lord's Resistance Army. They are, one part army and in some ways one part cult. They're supposed to be a fundamentalist Christian group, but here they are allying with Islamist groups. So a lot of this conflict has largely died down, but that doesn't mean that the relationship between al-Bashir and Joseph Kony is not existent anymore. So it may be that Kony is in refuge in the south of North Sudan, in a similar situation, possibly to like the way bin Laden was being housed in Pakistan. A lot of that is speculation. It's hard to know. But again, I'm not going to pretend to know that I know more than I do. Take all of that with a boulder-sized grain of salt. So, yeah, what is Joseph Kony up to these days? Fucking hiding out. Or they're actively roaming around, just keeping out of the way of the local armies and waiting for the next opportunity to build up their forces again.
Got any more clips?
And then, oh yeah, I was going to include this as well, but I couldn't make it work.
Masturbate.
Yeah, I just thought that was funny. Oh, I've lost the video for it. I was going to include it in the video. This is where his eye actually is in the video, and so I just sort of fixed it for him. Because
organization, and so we
it's
work
like it's so low down on his face.
outside of the traditional box of what you think about charity and nonprofit, and we break it.
So I just sort of fixed it for him, and then I was going to have that as a joke in the video, but then I thought, there's nowhere for it. Oh, this was a clip I didn't use.
Jason!
I don't know why I thought that was funny. I found this old clip, which I think is worth watching, of a young Philly D.
And jumping on this movement and actually doing something in real life. Because the point of Kony 2012 is to make Joseph Kony famous. People, whether in hiding or not, that is not a world I want to be in. And that's the point of Kony 2012, is to make Joseph Kony the most infamous man on the planet. To make it so that we shine the biggest light on the infection that is Joseph Kony's evil on this planet. So
Oh, if I'll provide this too, just the green screen of Jason dancing. I figured someone would want that. And here's the one of Andre Bieu if you want to put this in your own video. And here's Gwyneth Paltrow crying. And that's about it. Thanks for watching.